What's up everyone? Today I want to talk about one of the best and most fun Barbarian builds for leveling in Season 6. And it is a Dust Devil and Earthquake build where every single button on your hotbar will create either a tornado or an earthquake, meaning that you can just jump around, dealing massive damage to everything with really good mobility and just level from 1 to 60 so fast and have so much fun. As soon as I hit 60, I would jump straight into a Torment 1 and cleared it effortlessly with like no glyphs, nothing, no min-max gear. So you can definitely do a lot with this. You can farm out your uniques, get your gear, and build up to the end game. So let's talk more about the playstyle. So this build has a couple of features. One is Dust Devils. We use the following aspects: Windlasher, Devilish, and Fierce Winds, which mean that each of our shouts, gaining Fury and using Double Swing, all create Dust Devils. They're all larger and deal more damage. This is our main damage. This is our main way of dealing damage and just creating pure AoE chaos everywhere. The next thing about this build is Earthquakes. With the Earthquake aspect and Bull Kathos aspect, we can create an Earthquake when we leap and when we do Ground Stomp. And those Earthquakes give us a damage boost and a damage reduction. And then on top of that, we go into Berserking for extra damage and extra damage reduction. So your playstyle is just pure chaos. You leap into a group of mobs, you stand in your Earthquake, which automatically spawns there, you do your shouts, get all your buffs, and then just start double swinging and watch Dust Devils destroy everything. This build is it's just chaos, and the more you level up and the more aspects you unlock, the stronger and more fun the build becomes. So let's get into it in more detail. Okay, so let's start with the skill tree from the top. We go Lunging Strikes, 1 point, Enhanced, 1 point. Now, while you're leveling from like 1 to 30, you are going to run out of Fury a lot. So you can put a third point into here. Crit Strikes give you Berserking for 3 seconds. We use Berserking a lot in this build, so that does help. But once you get to like 30 and you start putting your aspects on more and you have more aspects unlocked, you don't really need to use a basic skill at all. So you can drop that off when you feel ready. Down into here, we put 5 points into Double Swing. It's our main source of damage, and every time we hit, it generates the Dust Devils, so we 5/5 that. 1 point into Double Swing if it is a stunned or knocked out enemy for 25 Fury, and then hitting them makes them vulnerable, which is really good. Put 3 points into Pressure Point for a chance to make enemies vulnerable, again. Down into here, we put 5 points into Ground Stomp. We take Enhanced Ground Stomp to generate Fury, and then we put, it's now a Brawling skill, 900% damage, and it also applies Vulnerable. So we get a lot of Vulnerable here, which is really good. Now, the reason we 5/5 this isn't so much for the damage, and damage is good, but it's for the cooldown. You see here, if we take all the points out, we're on about 15-second cooldown. We 5/5 it, and we're down to like 12.5. And this gives us Earthquake, it gives us Vulnerable, it gives us Fury, and when we Ground Stomp, we also reset our Leap. So there's so much that comes from Ground Stomp. 5/5 in it for the cooldown reduction is so important. So it's so much value for 5 points. We 3/3 Imposing Presence for life, and 3/3 Vigor for damage resistance. Then we move down here, and we take every single shout. We take all 3 of these blue shout abilities. So Rallying Cry, 1 enhanced and into tactical. Then we go down into Challenging, 1 enhanced and into tactical. And then for War Cry, we do 5 because with War Cry, it increases your damage. So 1 point there gives 15% damage. If we max it, we get 21% damage, which is pretty good for 7 seconds. Then we enhance it and we take Power. So these 3 War Cries, it's annoying having to put War Cries in every single Barbarian build, and some now don't need them. But this one really does need them because every single time we activate a shout, we create Dust Devils. So they're really good on their own, but getting a bunch of Dust Devils off every shout is it's so good. And there's other things we can take that brings their cooldown down. So having more is just better in this build. So I take all 3. Then move down into here and we have a lot of passives to get. Do 3 points in Booming Voice. Durations are increased by 24%. So you can see here, like the more we have, the more value we get from that because we've got all 3. We put 3 points into Guttering Yell, cause enemies to deal less damage. Perfect. And then movement speed up 12%. Really good on Barbarian because we're already a little bit slow. Then we take this cluster of passives here. Damage reduction while Berserking. While Berserking, you gain more Fury. And while Berserking, when a Berserking skill damages an enemy, gain Berserking. When a Brawling skill damages an enemy, gain Berserking. Okay, we take Leap, that's our mobility, Enhanced, and then if Leap damages at least 1 enemy, gain Fury. Okay, then in the next section, we go 3 points into Pitfighter, 9% increased damage to close enemies, and then damage reduction from far away, 3 points in Slay and Strike to do more damage to low health enemies. Down here, we go 3 points in Duelist, attack speed up 9% using one-handed weapons. So our double swing uses one-handed weapons. So while you're while you're swinging with both weapons doing that and generating all your Dust Devils, you just go faster, which is perfect. Down here, we put 1 point into Furious Impulse. Each time you swap weapons, you gain 2 Fury. If you've done all the quests in the new zone for Vessel of Hatred, you'll have 2 extra points. You can fill that. I still need to do it on this character. So yeah, that needs to be full. You can fill that. Then down here, for your key passive, you have Unconstrained. Berserking's damage bonus is increased to 60%, while below 65% life, you're always Berserk, and you gain damage reduction bonus. This is just really good. We have a lot of things that trigger Berserk. There's some aspects we take that have Berserk things on them as well. It just works well, and to be honest, there's not that much we get from the others, so this is a good one to take. And that's it really for the skill tree. That's pretty much everything. There's not much I would change. And then for your specialization, for your weapon expertise, I would go for Two-Handed Axe. This is increased damage to vulnerable enemies, so I think that works well because we have a lot of ways to make enemies vulnerable in this build. So extra damage to vulnerable enemies and increased crit chance is really, really useful, especially considering like most of our main attacks will be using our one-handers for double swing. So having the two-handed expertise on the one-handers is really, really useful. But yeah, that's what I would do there. And then before we jump into like gear and stuff, let's quickly talk about the new feature, the Mercenaries. So if this is your first character, if you're new to Season 6, you can have a hired mercenary and a reinforcement. You go to the den and you tell them, become my hired mercenary or become my reinforcement. And these are the ones I would suggest. So on the hired mercenary, this is the active one that follows you around. I would go for Vayana, maybe. So their main ability is Massacre. Whenever you attack, you stack Massacre, which gives you movement speed, which is really useful because barbarians are slow. If you go into a dungeon with like a Spiritborn, they finish it and you're still in the first room. So they're really, really useful. You kind of get like a tally in the top left of how high your Massacre's going. So you just keep chaining attacks and that just keeps going up. Really useful. Then you'd go into Cleave, go into Hysteria to get extra attack speed, go down into Bloodthirst, and then down at the bottom, you'd go into Bloodlust to further increase your attack speed. This is just so useful on a slow, chunky barbarian, having more speed and more attack speed. I can't follow it. Then down here, you go for your reinforcement. I like having Rahir here. I think this works quite well. Having Shield Charge, he hits them with an enemy and fortifies you for 5% of your life. Because you have so much life, that's really good on this build. It works really, really well. And then you can have an action that triggers it. I would just go for using your attack. I would just go for using your attack. I think that's fine. Whenever you use double swing, you gain, this whenever it's off cooldown. So that's what I would do. There's a few things we can do here, and there's a lot you can set up with like bleeding targets, crit, things like that. But I think for what this is as a leveling build, this works completely fine. Okay, so now let's go over the gear and the aspects and everything. And I'm going to use the Mobalytics build I've made for this. I'll link it down below. This has got the skills, the aspects, the skill tree, mercenaries, the runes, everything like that is on here. So you can come and check this out whenever you want. If you want to come back to this later, you can see it all here. But it's good to show it because you can see everything just on screen in one place without hovering over anything. So I will say, you aren't going to get all these aspects while you're leveling. You're going to be extremely lucky if you get to 60 and you found all of these. So there are some that are more important than others that we'll talk about first. So while you're leveling, the ones that would be really good to get on your weapons at all times are these: Fierce Winds. Your shout skills create 3 Dust Devils that travel along their path. They're bigger and they deal more damage. This is huge. The second one is Windlasher. Casting Double Swing creates a Dust Devil that deals damage to enemies in its path. These two on your main weapons, your bludgeoning and your slashing weapon, are the main way to go from, average leveling speed to very fast leveling speed. Once you've got these two, 4 of your abilities on your bar create Dust Devils, your Double Swing and those 3 shouts. So these are huge. Now, to increase your chances of finding these, you can see here where they drop. They drop on gloves, weapons, amulet, and rings. Same as this one here, this aspect here. Gloves, weapons, amulets, and rings. So try and when you're leveling, go to the Helltide and open boxes that are gloves, weapons, amulet, and rings. Go to the Ubals vendors and try and get gloves, amulets, weapons, and rings, because that's going to increase your chance of finding this aspect. Once you got those, you're pretty much good to go. I leveled for like 40 levels with just those 2. I tried to get those early and leveled those 2. After that, you can start getting everything else. And once you get to 60, you can just chuck it all on and start farming for your gear. So here's the other good ones. Aspect of Earthquakes. Ground Stomp creates an earthquake, dealing damage, and increases damage if you stand in it. Devilish. After generating 100 Fury, your next damage creates 2 Dust Devils. Then we go into like the Berserking ones. Dealing damage with a core skill has a chance to extend the duration of berserking. You've got Wild Bolt, distant enemies are pulled in and take more damage. Killing an enemy with overpower leaves behind an earthquake. Bull Kathos, leap creates an earthquake that deals damage over 4 seconds. While standing in it, you gain increased damage reduction. So once you have this and earthquakes and Bull Kathos, your earthquakes deal damage and give damage reduction. Then you've got Perpetual Stomping. Damaging an enemy with Ground Stomp resets leap's cooldown. So once you have this one, what you can do is you can say you're in a pack of mobs and they're about to all go down, or they're like half health. You can use your Ground Stomp to reset your leap, and then when they've all dropped, you can then leap into the next pack. That's a good little combo you can have. Then on the other side, we've got Berserker Fury. Gain Fury per second while berserking. This is good because it means you won't need to use your basic attack because you'll always have Fury. Old Chieftain, whenever you cast a shout skill, its active cooldown is reduced per nearby enemy. This is huge because we're not just getting the buffs, we're getting more Dust Devils. And then Aspect of Vocalized Empowerment, your shout skills generate primary resource per second while active. Another really important one because again, you can use your basic skill less. So like I say, you can play fine with just a couple of these, but the more you get, the more damage, the more mobility, and the more fury, so you can start dropping off your basic ability and just doing more damage. So yeah, that's the build. It just gets more fun the more you level, to be honest. But yeah, if you've got any questions on this, or I've tried a lot of different aspects with this, so if you have any questions, let me know. Okay, now let's talk runes and gems. So these are really good while leveling, and in early torments, I would go for this one here, cast a skill with a cooldown. We have a lot of those. And then at the bottom, reduce your cooldowns by 0.1 seconds. We get so much value from our shouts that having them off cooldown is essential. On the other side, I would take spend 5% of your resource, which is very easy with double swing. And then down here, restore your resource. They just a good synergy. They work together. You know, this is 5 offering. This is 5 offering. Over here is 50 and it requires 100. It just works very well. I think they're very simple. They're very easy and you can feel them while you're leveling. You don't need anything crazy like get the Spiritborn's ability. You don't need it while leveling, I don't think. These work completely fine. Then on the gems, I would go for Sapphire for increased damage to vulnerable enemies because I mean, we've talked a lot about things that play into vulnerable in the skill tree. We have the two-handed axe expertise for increased damage to vulnerable, so that works really well on the weapon. I'd go for strength in your armor slots, even though most of it's going to be taken by your runes. Anywhere left, you can put rubies. And then I just go for skulls for extra armor in the rest of your slots. This is a leveling build, so you don't want to stress too much about like resistances and stuff. You don't want to worry about anything like that. Just leveling, you will be a absolute unit. You will be a tank. You can steamroll to 60 through Torment 1. I'm currently pushing this through like the high ends of Torment 2. Haven't touched much of the gear, haven't min-maxed anything, haven't really got Ancestrals yet, and it's completely chill. So this will set you up completely fine. Okay, let's talk about the stats on your gear and tempering. And I'll say while leveling, don't stress it. Don't worry about tempering your gear until you hit like 40s and 50s. I wouldn't worry about tempering, and I wouldn't worry about rolling the stats at all until you're pushing Torments, the pit, things like that. But while leveling, here are the things to be looking for. On your gear, strength is good. Fury per second works really well because it's not like another resource, it goes down. So you want to make sure that's constantly up there to use your abilities. So I think that works quite well. Ranks to any of the skills we're using, like Ground Stomp, Double Swing, our passives, that obviously is really good, but they're more rare, I guess. Strength works well, attack speed works well, armor and life work well. Vulnerable damage is good. They're the main ones I'd be looking for. On the feet, movement speed is obviously incredible on a Barbarian, on a chonker like Barbarian. But yeah, they're the main things. And then when we get to tempering, here's what I'll be looking for. Any item that you have a utility temper, Dust Devil size. Having a bigger Dust Devil means it captures more things. Like if it's going in a direction and it's bigger, it hits more things in that direction. So anywhere with utility, I would slap on Dust Devil size. You can take cooldowns on when you have defensives, you can take cooldowns on your defensives. So you can use cooldowns on Ground Stomp. You can use challenging shout cooldowns, so things like that. Anything that brings a cooldown down of your shouts isn't just a defensive on this build because it also generates as Dust Devils. So any defensive skill, any defensive temper to bring down a shout is really, really good. Then on your weapons, I'd be looking for Dust Devil damage as the offensive. And then on the weapon, chance for Dust Devil to cast twice. So when you swing and it says chance to create a Dust Devil, it could create 2. So I do that on all your weapons. I've just put it here for 1, but do that on all your weapons. They're all the same. So yeah, that's what I'd be looking for on the gear. If you have any questions or there's anything you think would be better on this, let me know. This is a leveling build, so I'm not talking about scaling it up to tier 4, but while leveling and early torments, this all works really well. You can really feel an increase in dust devil damage. You can really feel these small changes really early on. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I think we're done. That's it for the leveling build, right? We've got the gear, the runes, the gems, the skill tree. Yeah, that's everything. That's what the bar looks like. That's the expertise. But yeah, that's everything. If you have any questions, let me know. If you like this style of video, then consider subscribing to the channel. I make a lot like this. This is I've done a lot of leveling builds for all the different classes, and now I'm going to be doing a lot of endgame builds. I've got a sorcerer one coming out in hopefully tomorrow. But yeah, that's everything. I'm gonna wrap it up here. This is all linked down below. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.